We ready to... Okay, good evening, everyone. We'll go ahead and call to order this meeting of the Sacramento Regional Transit for Monday, March 13th, 2017. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Absolutely. Director Budge?
Here.
Director Hansen?
Here.
Director Harris is marked as being absent. Director Detrick?
Here.
Director Jennings?
Here.
Director Kennedy is marked as being absent. Director Miller?
Here.
Director Natoli? Director Schneer? Schneer, is marked as being absent. Director Cerner is marked as being absent. And Chair Morin.
Here.
With that, we have a quorum at 58 votes.
All right, we snuck by on that.
Yes.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Cindy. Would everyone
more.
please rise and join me in the pledge?
I'll do my announcement later.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Cindy, sorry to interrupt you there. I'll let you read the specifics there.
No problem. This meeting of the Sacramento Regional Transit District will be cablecast without interruption on Metro Cable 14, the local government affairs channel, and will be streamed live on RT's website. Tonight's meeting will air on Wednesday, March 15th at 6 p.m. and replayed on Thursday, March 16th at 9 a.m. on Channel 14 and webcast at www.sacmetrocable.tv. It is also closed caption. Members of the audience wishing to address the board should fill out a speaker card located at the rear of the room and provide it to me or Adam. Please speak into the microphone and state your name for the record. We would appreciate everyone turning off their cell phones. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Cindy. First item, please.
And just noting that Director Natoli has joined us this evening.
Good.
So we have
Welcome, Don.
more than 8 votes.
Next item is public addresses the board on matters not on the agenda, and I believe you have 4 speaker cards.
Okay, thank you. We'll start off with Mike Barnbaum, followed by Mike, Joe Gamble, and after Joe, Jeffrey Tartagia. Good evening, Mike.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to address you this evening. Over this past weekend, regional transit and other transit providers in the region were providing service detours because a construction crane was finally removed from the Kimpton-Sawyer Hotel project on J between 5th and 7th. We want to recognize the Regional Transit District for something we felt was done very successful in anticipation between July 1st and September 30th of the announcement that we are hoping that Sacramento will be awarded an MLS franchise starting with the 2020 MLS season. And MLS is Major League Soccer for the folks that need to know what acronyms we're using. Regional Transit provided service along North 7th and 7th Street, not only with regular route alignment of Route 11, but as a result of the detours, Route 15 provided service along Del Paso Boulevard, North 12th, Richards, and then North 7th and 7th. Route 86 and Route 88 followed an alignment similar to Route 11. From Garden Highway and Interstate 5, those routes operated along Richards Boulevard, North 7th and 7th to J and then 9th Street. The part of J Street, though, that was operated was just east of the closure, so there was no service impact on that part of J. So what we want to applaud RT for in doing those detours is that the part of North 7th that changes to 7th, right around the intersection of Rail Yards Boulevard, is the proposed site and location selected by Sacramento Soccer Holdings Incorporated for the MLS Stadium site. It is very accessible to Sacramento Valley Station, Amtrak services, There's a proposal to have a Green Line station there. But until such things become real and construction starts and the stadium is operable, we want to at least recognize RT for the service detours provided and say there can be frequent service there, and not just by rail, but by bus too. You showed it and you were able to prove it, and that with the more routes you have there, the more frequent service will be, and the better off you will show for ingress and egress of an excellent transportation management program come opening night.
Okay. Hey,
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. So Joe, followed by Joe is Jeffrey, and then after Jeffrey, Maggie Coulter.
Chair Moore and directors, my name is Joe Gamble. I'm here on behalf of Ralph Niz and the membership of Amalgamated Transit Union, Local 256. I wanted to touch on the route optimization initiative and express labor's interest in being involved as an active participant in that process. We'd like to help build the public trust and help the district gain momentum. And this is a once-in-a-lifetime or once-in-a-career thing for those of us who are in the transit industry, and ATU wants to be a part of it.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming out, Joe, and thanks for all the engagement of your organization recently. Jeffrey, followed by Maggie.
Chairperson, shall we say, Regional Transit. Steve, I'm going to put you a little on the skewer as your constituent, but I'm also going to turn around and offer, as I compliment Regional Transit for both putting the 3 buses or 3 light rails in. At the same time, I will offer is this Friday when I noticed that all the sandwich boards said, go to the 7th and J Street bus stop. There is no 7th and J Street bus stop. It is 8th and J. And this is one of the things that internal communication with Regional Transit and the fact that your inner circle and are not riders. And I would love to have seen Mr. Patrick, isn't it Kennedy? Yes, as a rider to understand this and comment on this. But we'll say there's a number of things internally that Regional Transit doesn't make a great effort at in communicating. And I will say, after not being able to get a Deborah, not being able to get a Jamie for customer advocacy and projects and service, I finally called up James Drake and asked him what he was aware of the weekend. And again, no communication there in Regional Transit. I'm hoping he was able to collect the information, because one of the projects I have tried to work on with Regional Transit is the suggestion from Sac Valley Station to being the 62 and the 30, instead of going around the loop around in the arena, of going down to 6th Street and access route through there. It's a change, but hopefully the information that was able to be collected from this weekend, and if my understanding is correctly, in the future, this will likely happen again, that more information will be collected. To my problem with is Steve, STA. I'm disappointed that 13 got pulled. I'm also disappointed in, if now that we were down less to 18 months, if we're going to go after a, should we say, municipal transportation tax, we don't seem to have a lead organization that's ready to do this. And I applaud, but I'm sorry to say that Henry's not here, because I would have said the same thing. Henry, you haven't talked to me since last year, and there's a number of things that I observed going on and seeing, and RT can do better and started out doing better, but if you don't understand your ridership, you will have, like Saturday and Friday, and I believe Thursday, where people said, oh, this is Sacramento, this is Regional Transit. You'd grade great till November, but after November, both the cleaning, which is a contract in here that I'm going to comment further on in the agenda, but you kind of lost sight of having any projects. I hope that you guys will attack with the, in May on the bicycle, of getting the advertisement out there on the Gold Line for the bicycle from both Elk Grove and on the Gold Line as Folsom approaches.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeffrey. Maggie? Good evening, Maggie.
Maggie Coulter with Sacramento Human, and I was wondering if we could have Norm come up. It's there's 2 items on the consent calendar, but we don't want to pull those, but we're happy about them, and we really wanted to express our appreciation to Norm for all of his work, and so we appreciate your responsiveness, hard work, creativity, and openness to new approaches. You're the best. Norm from me. It's kind of an inside joke. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Maggie. Congratulations, Norm. Yeah. We'll get a picture of Norm with that balloon. Somebody get a picture of him. Okay, so that concludes business from the floor. Next item, please.
Consent calendar items 1 through 18, noting that you have many speakers on some consent items.
Okay, so just to kind of move this along, so we have items 1 through 18, 5, 6, 10, and 15. I have requests to speak on those items, so I'll entertain a motion to move 1 through 18 minus 5, 6, 10, and 15.
Second.
Moved by Director Hansen, seconded by Director Budge. Please call the roll on those items.
Director Budge?
Yes.
Director Hansen? Aye. Director Harris is marked as being absent. Director Detrick?
Yes.
Director Jennings?
Here, yes.
Director Kennedy is marked as being absent. Director Miller?
Aye.
Director Natoli?
Aye.
Director Chenier is marked as being absent. Director Cerna is marked as being absent. And Chair Morin.
Yes.
With that, we have a quorum at 100 votes.
Okay, so consent item 5.
Item number 5, cleaning and maintenance services. Greg Gamble's here to answer any questions.
Okay, and requests to speak on this were Helen. So Helen,
Helen, you want the microphone?
I think I can bend this down.
okay, we'll have somebody give you a hand there. And then after Helen is Brenda. Brenda Anderson.
Yeah, that'll be fine. I was asked to speak on this by several different people. We want to make sure that anybody that's being hired to clean any part of RT gets minimum wages so that they also have a livable wage. And we want to make sure that just because the people are developmentally disabled, that doesn't mean that they should be denied a livable wage. Thank you.
Very good. Very, very clear and understood, Helen. So next is Brenda. I just want to share with you, Brenda, I did get your email.
He was supposed to get it.
Oh.
Mr. Hansen.
Is the microphone on?
Mr. Hansen was supposed to get the email, so maybe you could share it
I
with
will
him.
gladly forward that to Steve for you.
Thank you. My concern was the justification of the decision to release in Alliance and go out and bid for other projects for the maintenance. And I noticed that you donated to Shriners for financial contribution. My question is, what was the reason to make this decision to do this?
Okay, can we, Mark, want to take that? Or?
Sure. 2 comments. The reason that we're going back out to bid is that it was a fixed-term contract, and we're required to bid services on a regular basis. So we're just following our own procurement requirements from the FTA. With respect to the wage, we're working, that's a vocational training program. They're paid minimum wage split by a group that are being trained to do a service. So that's an in-alliance model. Going out to bid, we'll have to see what the results of that bid are in the future. No issue with the performance of in-alliance or anything along those lines. It just needs to be bid periodically.
Okay.
Are they going to be included in the bid?
They'll have an opportunity to bid,
They'll
yes.
have an opportunity to bid. Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Thanks, Brenda. Okay, so with that, entertain a motion to move item.
Second.
Moved by Director Jennings, seconded by Director Hansen. Please call the roll.
Director Budge?
Yes.
Director Hansen?
Aye.
Director Detrick?
Yes.
Director Jennings?
Aye.
Director Miller?
Aye.
Director Natoli?
Aye.
And Directors Harris, Kennedy, Chenier, and Cerna are marked as being absent, and Chair Moran.
Yes, and thanks for summarizing those missing, Cindy.
You're welcome.
So with that, item 6 on consent.
Item number 6, resolution approving the Fourth Amendment to the Personal Services Contract with Robin Haswell for project assistance. And Roger Thorne's here to answer any questions.
All right, thank you, Cindy. And request to ask questions or address this is Brenda again. I should have just had you keep the microphone.
Hi. The project assistance is, I think this is the third time you renewed the contract and increased the funding for this project assistance. Robin Haswell. Can you tell me, is it commended the contract to extend it each time and the increase of expenditure? Can you tell me the justification for that?
I can jump in real quick. Roger's back there if I need help. But basically, we have from time to time personal services contracts with people that are supporting projects that are building things for us, capital in our capital program. Their contract is funded entirely from the capital program itself, or that project that they're assisting with. At that point in time that the project is done, or there is no other capital project that they can help us with, then they would no longer be employed with us. So it's very much tied to specific projects that are funded from capital, not operating sources.
Is this project on time?
This project is on time.
Although you will keep extending it.
Well, she provides the same kinds of service. She's been on multiple projects.
So you extended it for multiple projects?
Yes, there have been more than one capital project she's assisted with.
Do you go out to bid for other ones for these type of projects?
On personal services contracts, sometimes yes, sometimes no. It
In
depends
this
on the
case, you
contract.
chose no.
I don't believe that we bid this one, no.
Can you tell me why?
Well, we're looking for people with very specific skills. And so if we had her here and we were using her skills, we were continuing.
My concern is the timeliness. If I was to come back here and I find out that you've extended it again and increased the money again and again, then I would have a real big problem with what's going on.
So our practice would be when we can sustain, if we had a capital program that was large enough to sustain staff on a continuing basis, then we would probably create the full-time positions and internal positions within RT. We wouldn't be doing it this way. We do it this way to temporarily augment our resources in order to get this and whatever capital projects we may have in line done.
Okay, let me rephrase that question. Why are you continuing to extend the contract and increase the funding to this Robin Haswell?
I believe I answered that.
You answered it, saying that this was your endeavor, your policy, the fact that she was doing the work, and you're satisfied with it, and we wanted to continue with this individual.
And more importantly, we want to let her go when there's no capital project to support
You want to let
the
it go?
salary. Yep.
Okay. All right. I would like to go on record to say that I have a problem with the continuous extending of contract. I cannot imagine what someone could be doing that you have to keep extending it. If I came back and you extended it again, I would come back to you and say, what is she doing that you keep extending it?
So let me suggest that you spend a few minutes with Mr. Roger Thorne, who's seeing her directly, and he can go into all the detail.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Brendan. Don, did you have a?
Yeah, just going to comment. Certainly appreciate Brendan's questions. I think what was clear to me, though, these are different. Brendan, these are different projects. They're different. They may be short-term projects. They may support vendor management, may support a capital project, and so they're different bites. I understand about the extension, your point, but they're looking at different work products that when that's concluded, then that piece is done. So it's not like there's an extension. The work's not getting done. She's doing specified work under contract. So I don't know if that helps or not.
Exactly.
Okay.
answers it.
Okay.
Not just hanging to one.
No.
Extending it.
Yep.
Yeah, that's perfect.
All right.
Thanks.
Thanks, Tom. Okay, so with that, entertain a motion.
Second.
Moved by Director Natoli, seconded by Director Budge. Please call the roll.
Director Budge?
Yes.
Director Hansen?
Aye.
Director Detrick?
Yes.
Director Jennings?
Yes.
Director Miller?
Aye.
Director Natoli?
Aye.
And again, absent Directors Harris, Kennedy, Chenier, and Cerna, and Chair Moran.
Yes.
Motion
Yes.
passes at 100 votes.
Okay, and request to speak on item 15. Item 15?
I think you had 10 first, if
Oh, 10.
going in order.
Right, I crossed it off prematurely. I was trying to get ahead of myself. Thanks.
Item number 10, resolution approving a Title VI equity analysis. And is James here? James is here to answer any questions.
Okay, and I have requests from Barbara Stanton and Jeffrey Tardigia. Barbara? Good evening, Barbara.
Good evening, Chair Moran. I'm going to get it. And directors, Barbara Stanton, Ridership for the Masses. We disagree on the issue that the analysis found that there would be no potential impacts or any potential disappropriate burdens from implementing the mobile app. There's a whole group of people that doesn't get to use the mobile app. Only people with smartphones and debit and credit cards get to use the app. People who use cash don't get the 90 minutes that the app gives them on bus and light rail. They're sort of a group that's being treated differently than the people who have the app. And it can be kind of perceived that if you don't have the app, you're kind of being punished because of it. You know, because you don't have an app, you don't get 90 minutes on the light rail or the bus. You know, so we see that as being disproportionate to that. We do suggest, in order to eliminate that problem, you can bring back transfers that give 90 minutes to everybody that rides the system, whether people want to use the app and get the 90 minutes on the bus and light rail, or they can do cash or however they pay and get the 90 minutes on the light rail and the bus. But we do see this as being disproportionate as far as Title VI goes.
Okay, thanks,
Thank you.
Barbara. Jeffrey?
Board, I know this is related to fares, but I will bring to your attention the question is, as you've discontinued the bus book, is that not also a Title 5 or 6 issue, because you have now made it only that electronically you can access it? I just bring to the question, is that likely also something that, meaning that other people no longer have physical access to it?
Thanks, Jeffrey. Okay, any comments related to those comments?
The only thing I think I would add on the mobile app, the new mobile app, and that's that we are actually, in the new version that will be coming out here in the next few months, we'll be adding an ability for people who have a smartphone but don't have a credit card or banking capability to actually load fare on the new app with cash, which gives extra utility. So we will be addressing that. I don't believe that there wasn't a Title VI analysis necessary on the bus book. There are other forms of obtaining all the information in the bus book. And the fare media that was being described was all put into place to deal with a shortcoming of our system as it relates to events downtown, and that's the ability to sell fare to 1,000 people at once. And so that's the kind of the bigger issue in the discussion.
Okay, thanks, Mark. So moved by Director Hanson. I'll go ahead and second that. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions?
Motion passes at 100 votes.
All right. Last item on consent for comment is item 15.
Item number 15, resolution authorizing the release of a request for proposals for bus vehicle advertising and delegating authority to the GM CEO to award a contract for bus advertising services. And Deborah Salinas is here to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Cindy. Barbara?
Okay, I'm here again. Barbara, Ridership for the Masses. In January, we talked about the advertising for the bar and restaurant and how it was limited to certain advertising this way, and what's not permitted, there was pictures not permitted. So in this one, it's talking about allowing the person who you give the contract to decide how they're going to advertise on the bus. Is that correct? No. Oh, anyway, okay. So here in these pictures, it's the whole gamut of advertising. So my question is that going to include the alcohol, bar, restaurant? Are they going to be able to advertise the whole gamut, or are they still limited to the bus advertising that you spoke about in January?
Thanks, Barbara. You want to answer that, Deborah or Mark?
Deborah's coming up. She
Okay,
can
great.
speak to it.
Good evening. I'd like to address it. It will still follow the same advertising policy that we proposed in the last when we were working on light rail vehicle advertising.
All right.
So it's the same.
Thanks, Deborah.
Mr. Chair, I just want to thank Deborah for her work. I noticed there's a B story today about the Dignity Train,
Yeah.
and I think it's great. I think
Yeah.
a lot of
Thank
people
you.
really enjoy seeing what kind of corporations we have, and that it's an investment back into RT.
Exactly. It's a very exciting time. So
Yeah.
thank you.
Thanks, Deborah. Okay, so with that, I'll entertain a motion to move.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Director Jennings, seconded by Director Budge. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions?
Motion carries at 100 votes.
All right, next item, please.
Moving on, item number 19, General Manager's Report.
Mr. Chair, just before if I could, I needed, with my apologies, I must excuse myself. I have a community meeting in Wilton tonight where we have the FEMA folks in to talk about flooding, and I'm joining Assemblymember Cooley and moderating that meeting, so I've got to be there at 6:30, so I apologize for not being able to stay for the remainder of the meeting, so.
Yeah, is there?
You have to leave now.
Yeah, he's pretty much, yep. And
He's
good
in
luck,
meeting?
hopefully, nope, we're good, Don. And,
Okay.
and thanks
My
for
apologies.
being here as long as you were, and drive safe. Is there a train to Wilton?
The Central California Traction.
Maybe someday.
Okay. So, General Manager's Report.
Okay, just a brief report. As was reported, Mr. Lee and a number of our board members are back in Washington on the annual lobbying trip. I received a few emails from him, and he believes we're receiving great support, and we're welcome. As you know, the situation in Washington is in flux, to say the least, and so it'll be interesting to see what they come back with and what sense they have for future federal funding for transit. There is a brief description in the agenda concerning a federal update. We don't have any state update to provide. On another matter, I would like to gratefully say that we've restored service to Folsom. That our issue from December 12th, where we had a gate mechanism thrown into the high voltage wire that burned up a good portion of the single track signaling and grade crossing protection system in Folsom, was probably the single most disruptive event we've had in 30 years of light rail operation, and it was made disruptive by just the oddity of what happened to that grade crossing mechanism being pushed into the high voltage, and then the uniqueness of the 5 miles of single track that we have operating into and out of Folsom. And We ended up with parts that we didn't have on stock that we never thought we would have to replace. We had to rebuild much of the system that's out there that controls that signaling. We went into normal service with the beginning of service last Wednesday, March 8th, with almost a 3-month outage in Folsom. We ran a bus bridge in the meantime. We were able to get a train as far as Iron Point, but it was much less service than the normal service to Folsom, and we really appreciate the patience of our riders. We had fantastic work done by our line workers in the light rail department, led by our superintendent, Michael Cormet, and one particular supervisor, Jared Burklow, really put a lot of time and effort into this. To speed this up, we also hired a contractor to help us rebuild. While our crews are perfectly capable of doing that work, they also have other important work that they need to be doing, and the contractor helped us with that. So we were able to get it all together. Unfortunately, we were delayed at the end by some parts that were just 90-day lead time items that we just could not get quickly, either through the manufacturer or through other transit systems. Again, this is kind of a unique system. So I just want to highlight that to the board. I'm glad we're past it. I'm glad we're back into service, and a lot of hard work on the RT side. And with that, I would turn it over to Brent Brenniger to give a financial update and performance report.
Good evening, Brent.
Thank you. Good evening. So in February, let me see if I can get this. Okay, thanks. So in February, we had our strategic planning meeting, so we weren't able to give the January results. So today I'm going to cover the January results. And let's see here, the first slide. And this is our slide where we compare the month of January to the budget and then year to date. And so if you look at the first column over here where it says actual, when you look at total revenues, they came in about $13.3 million. And total expenses came in about $13.2 million. So there's about a positive balance of about $100,000, which is good when you compare revenues to expenses. But when you look at it from an actual to budget standpoint and you look at total revenues, we're slightly below when it comes to operating revenues. But what's really important, and one of the factors we look at, is the fare revenues. You'll see we're slightly above budget, not by much. And actually, when we looked at the fare revenues of about $2.5 million, that was the lowest we've seen since the beginning of July when the fare increase took place. So we're kind of keeping our eye on that. This is January information. We're starting to see February coming in, and February's looking a little bit better. So this is a good sign that this is it's looking like this could be the low month for this fiscal year. The next thing we look at is we look at our total expenses, and the salary and fringe benefit. That's where the majority of our costs are. And so when you look at that and you compare the budget to actual, you'll see that actual is actually greater than budget. So we have a negative $144,000 variance. And so I kind of want to focus on that. And one thing you have to know is when you look at January, there was 2 holidays in January. There was New Year's and Martin Luther King Day. And so when we do the budgetary process, we look at overtime and holiday pay, and we annualize that cost. Then we divide it by 12. And in the month of January, since there was more than average, that's why you'll see the salary and fringe costs over, because those 2 extra holiday pays. So the next thing we look at is we go over to the year-to-date column, and we see there's a positive variance of about $847,000 in that same category. So that's kind of the indication that altogether, when you look at salary and fringes, we're doing really well. So that's a good sign. The next discussion point I did want to kind of go back to is on the revenue side, where it says state and local revenue. You'll see there's no variance in that category. But looking into the future, we know some things are happening. We know diesel tax revenues are going down. In fact, when we start to look at February results, you'll see that SACOG approved a revised estimate for STA revenues. And so the revenues that we're booking right now and the budget that we're booking are based on apportionment schedules. When February revised apportionment schedule comes out, that will drop by about $770,000, and we'll be booking about 8/12 of that. So that's not really good news, and we know that's coming up. But one thing we knew that was coming because we've been hearing some rumblings about diesel tax revenues. So what we've been doing is we've been looking at our other revenues in that same category, which is the sales tax revenues. and this is our LTF revenues. The apportionment schedule we saw showed about a 2.5% increase, the initial one, and when we looked at the BOE, the Board of Equalization results, we're seeing the trend to be around 5%. So we've been working with our partners at the county and SACOG, and we're looking to revise that estimate. And so if we can get that revised estimate by next month, that offsetting STA loss should be offset by the increase in LTF revenues. It could be anywhere from $700,000 up to $1 million. So that's the good news here. Bad and good news, but I just want to make sure I share all that with you. I think those are the categories that I want to talk about on this slide. The next slide we look at is the detail into the fair revenues. And like I said, January, you can see we're really close to budget. And we think when we looked at January results, there's a couple things that happened. There was some service disruption, and there was also weather. So we think those are the two contributing factors that kind of played into this. And we're hoping with the weather improving, less rainy days, if you consider that improving, and I think we do in Sacramento, that should be a good thing. So overall, we're pretty positive. We think when you look at it from a year-to-date perspective, you'll see that we're from a budgetary standpoint, and then you're about $400,000 greater than budget. And then when you look at it from year-to-date January results to year-to-date of 2016, you'll see we're up about $2 million, which is like a 14% increase, which is great. So overall, we're pretty pleased with fair revenues. The next slide is the fare box recovery, and that kind of ties everything we've talked about with expenses and reduction in revenue. You'll see that our actual results show that we're about 20.5% on our fare box recovery. The target was about 20.6%, so we're slightly below that budget on the month of January, which makes sense because fares were a little lower, expenses a little higher. But when you look at year-to-date, again, we're doing well, 21.9% versus the budget of 21.1%. So things are looking okay there. And then the last slide, which is a very important slide that we definitely talk about a lot at RT, is ridership. You know, we're seeing that ridership is down about 11.8% for the month of January, and then year to date, we're doing a little bit better. You know, we've talked about the reasons for that. One is the fare inspection that we've done. We've done a really good job of inspecting people, and that's brought down ridership. We've also had the fare increase. That's done it. But again, I think for the month of January, what we're seeing is that it was the rainy weather, and there was a number of missed trips that attributed to the decrease in rail ridership. There's some mechanical issues and track blockage that we had due to the downed trees and so forth that impacted our service. I think we're also looking at, again, what we brought up at the strategic planning meeting is as these cars are getting older and are aging, we're going to start seeing some of these mechanical problems. So we really want to focus on replacing these rail cars because that will reduce costs and it will improve our on-time performance and more trips and more riders. And that concludes my financial update.
Great. Any questions for Brent? Okay, thanks, Brent.
Thanks.
So is that it on General Manager's report? Anybody else?
Nope, that's it on the GM's report.
Thanks, Mark. And I just want to say thanks for all the response you and Henry and your staff provided with the disruption and service to the last two stations there in Folsom. I think they appreciated. They didn't like the fact that service was lost, but the attention was well received. So thanks for all your work in getting that back up.
Thank you.
Andy,
Okay, yes, Steve.
I have a question. It was mentioned about the trees falling. Was there any of the lines that were affected by flooding, where there was actually loss of service due to flood for even a short period of time?
No, we didn't have any real water-related issues. The thing that got us this year with the storms were the high winds. Well, I guess that's maybe a bit of an understatement. The trees were weakened by all the rain and then fell. But from RT's perspective, we didn't have any rail service blocked by actual floodwaters or rising water. It was all the wind.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
And smud lines dropping on us from time to time.
And I do have a couple requests to speak on General Manager's report. So Mike Marnbaum, and after Mike, Jeffrey Tartagia. Good evening, Mike.
Good evening. Mark, thank you for the General Manager's CEO update. And to kind of tag along to it, we have a big state update to provide to you. And it's kind of a follow-up to what was presented and advocated during your workshop, which we saw on television due to the conflict of work hours on February 27th.
So this is a 3-minute state update?
Yes.
Okay.
Please take note of Senate Constitutional Amendment number 6, which we have a copy of here, and would be happy to meet with the legal team to provide photocopies of this so that they have the legal language for their entire team after the meeting. This, we hope, is our landmark bill this legislative session. This is the bill that would address what was successful some years ago by then Jack O'Connell and Tom Torlakson in the education industry to be a carryover into the transportation industry. And that would address lowering the voter threshold to pass local and regional transportation measures to achieve a 67% supermajority to only requiring local and regional jurisdictions to accept a 55% majority to pass such a measure. We are very excited about this. We met with the staff of Senator Weiner at their Capitol office. The senator is representative of the San Francisco Bay Area, and specifically the senator's district office is on Golden Gate Avenue in San Francisco. Just a quick Capitol corridor ride away from Sacramento. So we really hope that this has a lot of clout and muster in this 2-year session. We did run into, at the Golden One Center, our legislative advocate from the California Transit Association, and they're well on top of this bill as much as they are with SB 1 by Senator Bell of San Jose and AB 1 by Jim Frazier of Oakley. You've heard of those two bills, mainly covered in local news media, but not so much this bill.
Okay.
So we want to bring you an update about this bill, and that we hope that on your legislative agenda, this is a bill of high importance.
Yep, we're following closely. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Jeffrey?
Board, as I'm sure you're well aware of, one of the other factors dealing with performance and ridership is January, typically Los Rios, is not generally, should we say, until the end of January starting up. So it is another factor that has impact for January's performance. I've also been to as you know, I do pay attention and go to legislative sessions, and so was able to see what the governors talk about conversation as you hear the conversation related to the STA as well as other transportation and other budgets. Missed today's Medi-Cal budget, but as Phil has reminded me, and as I've done some other looking at, is for the county, IHS is going to have a dramatic impact. So on all salaries and all fronts. But the other issue I want to bring up is that I believe the next month, reminder, once again, we will only have one board meeting in the month. And also, I believe the MAC calendar has some also changes, and I hope that it is flagged that it will not be in the calendar schedule, being meeting the first Thursday of the month for next month. There is a change, and I note in there is no notice of that in the RT calendar related to there. Anyway, that's just something that I observe, and for the public, it's helpful, like other things, to have best information out there.
All right.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Jeffrey.
Chair Moran, if I may, Jeffrey misspoke. Next month, in April, we do have 2 meetings. It's this month in March that we only have 1.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Excellent. Okay, so that concludes that. Looks like so items 20 and 21 appear to be very closely related, so is it okay if we take those together? Does that work?
As long as the board approves.
Board's unanimous, I'm convinced, so.
Certainly, then
So
I'll...
yeah, if we could take those together, I think that makes more sense. Do we need a motion on that, or are we just?
No, as long as you're all happy, I think we're fine.
Yes.
Most of us are happy.
Council says we're fine.
We need a thumbs up, maybe the happy face on the balloon.
So let me read items 20 and 21 together, mind you. Ratify the release of an invitation to bid and awarding a contract for the system-wide station improvement project Phase 2 and 3, one contract for civil to JPB Designs and one contract for painting to JPB Designs. And Daryl Abensato is here to present.
So while Mr. Avanzado comes to the dais, we have normally we would have put these on consent, but we've heard from the community concerns over focus on the downtown and the Golden One Center, and they're just here on the public part of the agenda to highlight the fact that that was a bigger project that included sprucing up stations outside of the downtown area, other key stations and other stations on our system, and that's what this begins, is that process of repainting and repairing older light rail stations system-wide.
Fantastic.
Okay. Good evening, Chair Morin, directors. Mark, you took a lot of my introduction, but that's fine. And the reason why I'm presenting item 21 and 20 and 21 together, as Mark said, there was a lot of focus on the Golden One Center, and I just wanted to highlight the things that we're doing at RT for the system-wide improvements, specifically for this painting contract and the civil contract. So back in October 2015, when the board delegated authority to the GM to get all the system-wide improvements done within a year, we did a big accomplishment. We got the surrounding stations around the Golden One Center. We actually had these two particular contracts under one contractor. We actually had that ready in the summer of 2016, and we actually had a bid opening day around October, about the same day the Golden One Center opened. And unfortunately, there was no interest. We didn't have any bids, so we kind of rethink how we were going to get this portion of the system-wide stations improvements done. So we split the contract into a painting and civil contract, and we opened bids in January, and here we are today. So what I want to do is kind of give an overall of the system-wide station improvements, just to give the directors, the chair, and some of the public of where we're at. The overall budget of the system-wide station improvements was a $6.7 million project, which included hard and soft costs. Phase 1, which was the downtown stations, of course, that was a $2.5 million contract for those 3 stations. We added a change order to our contractor for the downtown to demo 7th and K station. We actually are doing the lighting for the city right now, and so that's ongoing. We expect that to be completed within the next few weeks. Our Phase 2 construction budget was about $500,000, and those included the key stations around the surrounding the downtown area, and that included Sunrise, Watt Manlove, Florence Station, and I believe, did I forget one? Roseville Road Station. Roseville Road Station. And the next phase, of course, was Phase 3 construction that had a budget of about $1.3 million. So take that, the rest of our 49 stations for trying to do all these improvements with that. It sounds like a big number, but it's to divide that into those multiple stations, it's difficult to try to get everything done. So part of that $1.3 million, we actually took a large chunk out of that, about almost $400,000, to get the Parkeon ticket vending machines completed by the time the Golden One Center. So that budget kind of got cut down. And as we constructed the Golden One station improvements, we actually had a lot of ongoing improvements that RT staff did with some of our on-call contracts. We did continue to address the lighting at all our park and ride lots. So we had crews constantly going out there and making sure that lighting was working. We also did LED improvements to 4 of our key stations. Again, those were Sunrise, Watt Van Love, Roseville Road, and 16th Street. One of the other things we're focusing on is the 16th Street. We're actually in the process improving the shelter lighting and making an upgrade to LEDs at that station. We're also focusing on cameras at the Phase 2 and Phase 3 stations. So those are ongoing. And now going back to the painting contract, the painting contract includes 19 stations. The low responsive bidder was JPB Designs, and that came in about $500,000. And that work includes painting the columns, light poles, benches, shelters, railings, bollards, bike lockers, and drinking fountains. And the civil contract, again, that included 31 of our stations. And again, the low responsive bidder was JPB Designs. That came in about $340,000, and that's why I requested that I include both of these items, 20 and 21, together. So the work for the civil contract included additional cleaning at those stations, concrete repairs, tripping hazards, additional signage, repairing fences, repairing detectable warning tiles at those stations, and fixing any block walls or structures at those stations. So overall, the system-wide station improvement went very well. We're actually under budget, and with that remaining budget, we're looking to see what we could utilize, what improvements, and some of the things that come into mind is improving lighting, of course, at our stations. So that's our focus at this point, and that concludes my presentation.
Great. Well, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for that update. Any questions? Okay.
Move approval?
And I do have one request to speak on this, so we'll hold. Okay, so moved by Director Budge and seconded by, who was that? Miller. Director Miller seconded. So Brenda
Steve, and you
Anderson,
got it covered.
request to speak. Thank you, Adam.
Thank you. That additional cost that you have left over as far as after Phase 4, would you consider adding more cameras? Security cameras?
Yes,
Is
we
that
have
a possibility of considering more?
Have worked with Norm's team, and we've identified which.
You mentioned that you're going to do that, but you also said you had extra money in your pocket.
I guess we could decide which.
How would that be a consideration?
It could be a consideration.
Okay. Second question is it separate, the makeover and which is appearances, and there's a separate section of people that does the internal changes, the route changes, expansion. You're just concerned with how good it looks.
We're trying to make the appearance more durable, because when you do like a quick paint job, it gets worn out within a couple years, and then we're back to square one. So some of the painting improvements, some of the costs have came up. We're prepping the areas with a better method, and so the paint would last longer.
Okay, rephrase my question. Okay. Your makeover and repair and painting is all good. You don't have anything to do with route changes, expansions, and things like. All you're concerned with is make sure everything looks nice and clean and pretty.
Correct. I'm just looking at.
That's all. That's who you are.
That would be probably James or.
Okay, so there's separate roles there. Okay, that's my third question, and the last question I have is this makeover. How did you determine where you're going to go clean up and look up good?
Well,
you just chose the place?
Myself and several of my staff, we've surveyed starting back in 2015. We walked the stations. We made notes of what needed to be improved, and we prioritized. As we know, where there's a very limited amount of budget, and we try to determine which money would fit best at each station. So,
no community outreach?
There aren't actually new improvements. There actually were enhancing the station. Enhancing, like almost like one for one.
Did you get complaints that citizens or riders come in to complain and say, this is really filthy, broke down, and that would generate something.
And that's one of the things
improvement.
we're addressing, the cleanliness. We're doing that every day.
I see. But none of this is based on complaints.
I guess you could say part of it. There are some PSRs that we do address on a day-to-day basis.
So just to jump in, I would say absolutely they've been based on complaints. We've not kept up with just regular ongoing maintenance at the stations. You can go to many of our stations and see the paint is worn, etched, coming off in places. We have missing blocks. We have seats that need to be repaired. We have garbage cans that need to be replaced. I don't even really call this an improvement. This is just catching up with maintenance that should have been done in the past.
I see.
Yeah.
You're just catching up with yourself. Doesn't matter if somebody complained or you went out, took a look. A needed thing to be done.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
Yes.
I'd like to second what staff is saying. And Brenda, I think it's really important that you know that almost email email that we get has a complaint in it about the physical appearance of the stations and the trains. And now that it's lighter at night, because that's when we ride the train, it's easier to see that there's hardly any blue paint left on railings in so many stations. The little walls that were built, the little decorative seat walls that were built on the original section of the line going out to Butterfield, so much of that is old looking. It's dirty. It's dingy.
Yeah,
this is something that we all.
Yeah.
You've heard the phrase, the broken window theory. All right, we all deal with this all the time. When something looks as though no one cares enough about it to paint it or sweep it or wash it, then it's easier for it to become more damaged.
I have no complaint.
Really deferred maintenance, and we hear these complaints all the time.
Okay, I have no complaint with what you're doing. I just want to know how it happened, degenerated it, with the system process of it doing. And I'm satisfied with my answer that I received. And thank you very much. There's no complaint about what you did. I just want to know how it happened. That's all.
Thanks, Brenda. Okay, so let's see, that was the only request I had to speak on items 20 and 21. So those have been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions?
Motion carries at 58 votes.
All right, next item, please.
Next item 22, Regional Connect Card Transit Card, presented by Casey Courtwright. And before you are two motions. One is a resolution approving and authorizing the GM CEO to execute a memorandum of understanding regarding governance on the Regional Connect Card Transit Card System ongoing operations. And the second resolution is temporarily authorizing a daily best fare type for the Connect Card users. It's all yours, Casey.
Thank you, Cindy. I'm glad you spit all that out so I didn't have to choke on it myself. Good evening, Chair Moore and members of the board. As you're aware, RT has been working with SACOG and other transit partners to implement the Connect Card program for the past few years. We're happy to report that as of January 25th, all 9 members of the Connect Card Consortium have entered into a soft launch phase of the project. So this project is up and running now. We've got legs under it. Recently, RT staff, in conjunction with Doug Carter, SACOG, and our Connect Card partners, have drafted an MOU that will guide the ongoing operations of the Connect Card project. Board or council approval or anticipated approval dates have been included for each of the agencies in your board packet. As far as the MOU itself goes, RT will serve as a voting member and will operate in-house the Connect Card Regional Service Center, or RSC. As the operator of the RSC, RT will provide services for Connect Card users, such as customer service requests, financial reporting to the other agencies, and technical support. In return for providing these services, the MOU calls for expenses related to RSC operations to be shared amongst all of the partners. The The current cost share model laid out in the MOU it has a basis of a 50-50 split between fair revenue for each agency and boardings for each agency. In year one, that means that RT will pay approximately 79% of the total costs of the RSC. The remaining 21% will be split amongst the other agencies. The second resolution that staff is recommending tonight, as Cindy mentioned, is board approval of a temporary fare type, or daily best fare, for Connect Card users. One of the advantages that electronic fare media has over traditional paper forms of fare media is its flexibility. Connect Card has the capability to offer new fare types that can benefit both our riders and RT that simply aren't available with cash or paper fares. We believe that the daily best fare could be one of these offerings. During the first few months of the Connect Card soft launch, we've received fairly consistent feedback that the system has not been as easy to use as the riders would have wished. The most pressing challenge for riders has been their ability to purchase daily passes both on the bus and on the light rail platform. Implementing a daily best fare is going to essentially eliminate the need to purchase a daily pass for virtually all of our riders. And it's actually going to provide an additional incentive to riders who traditionally use prepaid single tickets to ride more throughout the day. The daily best fare itself is, the way it works is it's going to set a purchasing limit for each day for the rider, equivalent to that of our daily pass price. So for example, our full fare riders will pay $2.75 for each of their first two boardings during the day. Their third boarding would be reduced down to $1.50. That's going to cap them at their $7 price for the day. So any boardings they make for the rest of the day are going to be free on the Connect Card system. Implementing the daily best fare will allow RT to simplify its messaging to our Connect Card users, simply instructing them to just tap and go. It's going to reduce operator interaction, speed up boarding times, and provide an additional incentive for riders who are using prepaid single tickets to ride more throughout their day. It's going to do all of this while ensuring that the appropriate amount of fare is collected from each rider based on his or her daily ridership patterns. Do we have any questions on either of the two resolutions?
Director Hansen?
I just wanted to say first thank you. Ever since I joined the board 4 years ago, a little over, I've been asking about when we were going to get here. So I appreciate that we're basically on the precipice. The only question I had is I was surprised Paratransit isn't a partner agency in this because they do run such a system that's integrated with us. Is there a reason that Paratransit as an agency is not part of Connect Card?
We've reached out to Paratransit, and Brent, do you have a?
Brent?
Go ahead. Yeah.
I think they've actually expressed the same question to us. I think there is a capital component. So putting this equipment on their buses right now, I guess the project when it initially started was about, I want to say $11 to $13 million. So they weren't part of the initial process, but I know they have that interest, and we are working with them to see what would that cost, because there'll be a capital component and operating. So
would we get operational efficiencies between RT and Paratransit if they were joined with Connect Card?
That's a good question. I would say
or better data.
Well, I don't think the Connect Card is necessarily going to give us a lot of ridership data. What we're trying to do is set this up for actually ease of use for the consumer.
Yeah.
So then you want to look at it from a Paratransit standpoint. What are they doing right now? A lot of those riders are actually buying fare in advance, right? So and typically, so the amount, so I guess where you would see efficiencies is reducing the cash that's coming in for the operators that are actually collecting cash on the bus and depositing that into their safe and
convenience for the rider.
And yeah, it's a big convenience for the rider, I think. And then you're allowed to also, by doing a Connect Card. And our consultant, Doug Carter, mentioned this to the board at the time. If you don't have an electronic form of media and you want to raise fares, at least on our system, it's very difficult because the fares have to go up in increments of 25 cents, right? Under a Connect Card, you have flexibility to move fares around, where if there's one population that's underserved, you could actually lower pricing small, and then you can increase it in another area. You have a lot more flexibility with a Connect Card and electronic system.
Well, as a RT designee to the Paratransit Board, I think I'm going to raise this with them because I think having all the transit agencies locally, including our future streetcar system and our bike share system as part of it, will be helpful as well.
Yeah, so it'd be interesting.
Thanks.
Great. Director Budge?
Yes, thank you. So would you define the Connect Card Regional Service Center? Is it a physical structure or what?
No, it's made up primarily of current RT staff members. There's very little hiring or new. There really was only, there's been very few positions created. There's nothing new to RT in regards to this. What we're doing is we're just incorporating these new functionality into current, job descriptions and current positions that are out there. For example, our customer advocacy department will be handling the regional calls for Connect Card, be it if you're riding on Yuba Sutter Transit, if you have a specific Connect Card question, they'll be directed to call our customer advocacy department.
Okay.
Director Butcher, the biggest physical plant is really in computer equipment on our end that hosts the controlling software and links to the regional partners.
Okay. Got it.
Okay, I do have a couple requests to speak on this item. Mike Barnbaum. Mike, following Mike is Jeffrey Tartagia, and after Jeffrey is Dan Allison. Good evening, Mike.
Hi, good evening. If I could take a moment to answer Director Hansen's questions about paratransit. So a lot of the discussions about the Connect Card at a regional dynamic forum have occurred at the Transit Coordinating Committee at the Sacramento Area Council of Governments. And paratransit always has staff in attendance at those meetings. They have brought up similar questions, and a lot of the answers they've received are very encouraging to them in that they're taking some of the baby steps necessary to look forward to perhaps become the 10th transit agency to be on board with the Connect Card. Unfortunately, because of where we are at that stage, they're not going to be part of it at the initial full launch date, which is anticipated likely to be June 15th. More information to come. I'm sure we'll address that probably at a late April or early May board meeting if we get some more information for you. But on the Connect Card and just the best fare type, I wanted to address the corporate accounts. That's what I'm trying to say. So let me give a couple examples. So the state of California and another corporate account, Alta California Regional Center. They're going to be operating the Connect Card in two very different dynamic ways. Mostly what I've heard at the state of California is that state employees would go to their transportation coordinator in person and would be responsible as a state employee to pay the cost out of pocket. Through Alta California Regional Center, the consumer is provided a service through that corporate account. Currently, many of them receive a sticker, but stickers are going to be going away. One of the functions now is you cannot turn in a sticker in exchange for the equivalent of the monthly pass loaded on the Connect Card. How will the best fare type in either the state or Alta California Regional Center in particular be incorporated, especially if you're getting your pass as a service, to be auto-loaded onto your card so that you're not red lighted on the computer anytime you board a bus or scan by the officer on the train that you don't have fare.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Go ahead, Jeffrey. We'll respond to all these at once. So.
Oh.
Good evening, Jeffrey.
Well, board, as your Connect Card tester, what many years ago, and Adam can confirm this, is basic problem is how do you, when you get overcharged, how do you address that? And as you remember, I brought to the board this year repeatedly is with the Connect Card, how do you deal with overcharges? I've made the suggestion that you do some type of credit when you recharge a card. Because last Friday, I was charged, before I heard this from last meeting that we had of the RT that we were going to this fare box, so tried seeing again whether it was used and got charged twice for 30, twice for the 82, and then once going home as a single 135 rate for passes. So we're looking forward to this, going to this best process. I'm heard that we've corrected the problem with the reboot of the issue of questioning whether it's single, daily, and whatever else through there from the Unix and the Linux system that's the operating system for the Connect card. Lastly, I will say to you is the biggest advantage of the Connect card is allowing RT to know what is the on-demand service, so you can adjust things much clearer in time. But for the other providers, I'm still concerned, which is the question I brought up before, is how in the world do you deal within the first 24 hours when the system is out of sync? Because it takes a while for on the cloud and what the devices that are running on the partners to RT. And the other side is that also is when you have these overcharges because you're protecting the card is, and I believe, like I said, is when there a new deposit is made is the best way of doing a credit adjustment. I just bring that to your attention. Want to see this go forward. And Steve, yes, if you don't know what 1, 2, 3, 4 is, I'm looking forward to you understanding what 1, 2, 3, 4 is referring to in the Connect card.
All right, thanks, Jeffrey. Let's see. Dan? Evening, Dan.
Good evening, Board. My name's Dan Allison, and I'm speaking for myself this evening. I have been a user of the Connect card since the soft launch opening date, and I'm very happy to see it here. I also use transit a lot in other places, Los Angeles and the Bay Area, and very happy with their similar cards. There have been some rough spots. Some of them have already been resolved, and others are on the list, and I think the group doing it is trying very hard to make it work. I completely support the daily best fare idea for the reasons that were in your agenda packet. It makes sense. It speeds up everything, and anything that we can do to speed boarding is good for the system because it reduces dwell time, which is where we lose so much on bus routes. So I would like to see this happen, and presumably if it works out, I'd like to see it continued. It also partly mitigates the existing problem with the Connect card that bus and light rail are being handled separately in the system, that they are charged if you transfer between one and the other. You get charged again, unlike the mobile app, which treats them as a unified system. So it would partly mitigate that issue. I hope the mobile app and Connect card come into alignment one way or the other so that they operate identically, but this would mitigate it. So thank you.
Great. Thanks, Dan, for helping us test that out, and you too, Jeffrey. So I guess just to quickly address these things, Casey. So I imagine the overcharging issue is just a matter of working with customer service, and
it's exactly that. And one of the reasons that we brought the daily best fare to the board was exactly, the use case that Jeff's run into is that. We've had unintentional misuse of the system, and that's led to some of our customers being overcharged. And so, for those that do have reached out to our customer advocacy department, we've been refunding that value on those cards. I think for Jeffrey's individual case, he's running up a balance that we're waiting for the daily best fare to be implemented, and then we're going to refund all at once his overcharges. But it's certainly one of the main reasons as to why we've brought this forward.
Okay, good. And then Mike's question related to kind of some of our corporate customers.
Yeah, so the daily best fare actually, Mike, only applies to individuals who are using single rides or a day pass equivalent. It'll essentially convert itself to a day pass after the third boarding. So for those who are on monthly passes or stickers, the daily best fare doesn't really apply at all. There's no difference, for those riders.
Okay, great. All right, so can we move these items together then? Okay.
Second.
Okay, so moved by Director Hanson. Who was the second over there? Seconded by Director Budge. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions?
Motion carries at 58 votes.
All right, let's see, on our reports, ideas, questions from directors, communications there, that's all. Yeah, so I guess, so is that, that'd be 23 and 24 then on paratransit there, Steve?
So on 23 and 24, they're written reports in your board packages from Paratransit Inc.'s board meetings of January 17th and 26th. If either Directors Hume, Natoli's not here, excuse me, Director Hanson has anything to add?
It's a pleasure to serve on the board on behalf of RT. I'm still trying to understand it, but I was actually going to ask about something.
Okay.
That's not on your updates.
Okay, so we'll get to that then. So anything else on 23 or 24? Okay, 25, if you want to read that item, I do have a request to speak on that.
25, San Joaquin Joint Powers Authority meeting of January 27th. Again, a written report in your binder.
Okay, thank you. And Mike Barnbaum?
Thank you. So San Joaquin Joint Powers Authority is very busy since becoming a JPA and assuming the day-to-day management of what is now a rail service providing 7 round trips throughout the San Joaquin Valley. 5 travel from Bakersfield to Oakland and back, and 2 travel from Bakersfield to Sacramento and back. This is probably going to be one of the most important meetings up and coming on the 24th in Modesto. Similar to the Capital Corridor Joint Powers Authority board meeting in February, the March meeting of the San Joaquin Joint Powers Authority is asking the board to approve the draft business plan written by staff. This is a big document, and there's many changes going into this draft business plan that have been revised since the last one was authored and passed by their board a year ago. A year ago, in June 2016, was when the 7th round trip was initiated. It was the 5th between Bakersfield and Oakland, and the first added along that alignment in over 2 decades. And that was the reason that there's call for major revisions in the business plan going before the board later this month. Let me read you something really quickly out of there that will catch your attention quite well. Providing frequent service to Sacramento is the greatest focus of San Joaquin Joint Powers Authority's 10-year capital program. San Joaquin Joint Powers Authority is envisioning getting hourly service to from Sacramento within the next 10 to 15 years. That should make this board very Sacramento proud to hear that. We encourage your support and even attendance at this meeting in Modesto. There is a direct train leaving on the day of the meeting at 6:35 in the morning. There will be a shuttle service provided from the Modesto station on the east end of town into downtown Modesto on the west end of town, and back again when the meeting is finished. And we're going to go support this business plan and also provide an operational compliance report to them as a result of some things that happened over this past weekend, in which the time change occurred where we were able to spring forward an hour. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, anything to add on item 26, Director Budge?
No, actually, I provided a written report, and Cindy included it in the packet, and we're cool.
Thank you. And Capital Corridor on item 27, Director Miller, anything?
I think the only thing I'd add to this is under the business plan update, we're going to continue doing the 30 trains, 15 round trip during the week, and I think it's 22 weekend trains or 11 round trips. So
it's great.
Stays the same.
Fantastic. Director Hanson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a question for Mr. Lonergan. Are we still using the 7th to 8th and K stop on? I think we are for boarding. It's where the construction is going on the 700 block. Are we still boarding?
Yes.
And I was there this weekend, and it was fairly untidy. I asked the Downtown Partnership about it, and I just thought I'd also have us take a look at it this Saturday, and there was a lot of trash around and stuff. And
Absolutely.
I don't know if that's us or if it's them, but
We'll look into it, make sure it's spruced up.
okay, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, and I'll just thank Director Dietrich for filling in for Patrick Kuhn there and helping us fill a quorum here. Yes.
Yeah, after all these years, you should know it's Detrick.
Tetrick, yes. Should just call you Steve like
There you
everybody
go.
else up on
There
the
you
board. So with that, next item is announcement of closed session items.
Correct. Item A, conference with real estate negotiator, property 2220 Semo Circle, Gold River. The board will recess to closed session, and there may be a report out of closed session
Okay.
when you're done.
Okay, so with that, we are adjourned closed session.